Hey everyone, Dave here with another episode of the Philly Tech Connect podcast. Today I'm speaking with Ryan Long, the founder of Pique Solutions, a software development company focused on supporting entrepreneurs in various stages of growth to design, build, and launch products. He's worked with Nike. He has had experiences as a startup founder, as a COO of a medium-sized business in the DC area, but now we're lucky to have him in Philly. We're going to be talking about building highly effective tech teams. What is the right call to work with an agency or to build a house? Anything else we kind of come up with? Ryan, how are you doing?
Dave, I'm doing great, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be here with you and be part of your podcast. I love what you're doing with PTE and the community you're building, especially in the Philly area. I don't think Philly gets quite enough recognition for the density of entrepreneurs and startups within it. So glad to see what you're doing.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's great to have you in the community as well. Let's talk about, I guess the early days before you have the tech team in place. A lot of people have ideas. They don't have the technical knowledge, and maybe they're looking for a CTO, or they may be considering like an agency such as yours. What's is there a right approach to how to go about this? You're a founder, you have an idea, you maybe have a marketing background, or you're just someone who's experiencing that problem, you're a first-time founder. Is there a right approach to whether you work with an agency, whether you bring, get someone as a partner, whether you hire somebody? How do we kind of go about making that choice?
Dave, right for the hard questions. I, I don't know that there's a one size fits all answer here, but what's really important as a as an early entrepreneur is to take the time to understand your partners, whether it be a co-founder bringing on a fractional CTO or parsing out some of that work to an agency. It's really important to make sure that your values and objectives align with the person you're or team you're partnering with. And that can be really challenging in the tech and startup space, especially for non-tech founders. There's a lot to navigate, a lot of new roles within that, whether it be developers, designers, product strategy. There's a lot to navigate. And so finding someone you trust who can help you understand how each of those roles fits within your ecosystem and it's going to help you get to product market fit and product launch. That's really important.
When you're evaluating an option, like you said, there's so many different, there's the fractional CTO or a freelancer agency, etc. We know that the tech skills are important, but what are the other factors that we need to take into consideration? You mentioned, at a high level, like that they align with your goals and then maybe they align with your vision and things like that. When we're actually having those conversations, what are maybe the things we should be asking or paying attention to signal to us that we're maybe going to be working with the right people.
Yeah, that that question I don't think is necessarily specific to tech, but to any partner. Understanding where they place their values, what they feel like is important to them, and how they work with others. Those soft skills really make a difference. And startup world, it's super competitive, and sometimes that can bring out the worst in people because they're hyper focused on an outcome or getting a promotion or finding that unicorn solution. So, it's Dave, we're gonna edit this part out, right?
We may or we may not. No, but
All
I
right.
understand what you're saying. Like, I used to work with a developer back when I had my first SaaS, and I don't really have a technical background. I took like a coding class in college once, so I sort of knew a little bit about how to think about tech and approach it, but I didn't necessarily know what I was certainly the one without the broader information. And so I ended up working with this developer who had really poor soft skills. I think technically he was really sound, and he convinced me that he was really capable and was the right person to go with. But he was a difficult person to work with. He wasn't particularly communicative. He wasn't that nice. And I found myself in a bit of a bind as a founder because the more I worked with him, the more I felt kind of tied to that relationship. He's like, oh, this is Jacob. He's already been building the product for months. He knows it in and out. You know, the idea of starting with somebody new was really daunting. But at the same time, these soft skills that he didn't have, I knew they were never going to get better. You know, they kind of they were what they were, and he wasn't really going to make an effort to to improve in that way. You know, does that like story resonate with you? Have you seen kind of experiences like that, or what are the ways in which you try to, I guess, differentiate yourself in that area?
Dave, that resonates with me entirely. I lived that in a previous startup life, and maybe that's what motivates myself and my team today to do differently. And whenever you're working with a new partner, having that discovery session up front to set expectations, understand what the scope's going to be, what the timeline's going to be, and what those key deliverables are along the way is going to help set you up for success. But I also think bringing in a UX designer early in the process is a sign of a well-rounded um, product development team because you know they're going to place a heavy emphasis on your end user. They're going to place a heavy emphasis on collaborative thinking. That's a great signal for a tech partner to bring in.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. I think it's easily kind of overlooked. A lot of people don't realize that a developer who maybe is responsible for front end, back end coding is not necessarily a designer. Maybe that may sound obvious to yourself, maybe to some people, but it was not obvious to me like years ago. And they would kind of produce these results, these, pages and stuff. I go, "Ooh, this is like doesn't really look that nice. Like this looks kind of like ugly." But it worked. It was functionally kind of worked. And that was when I understood that like that was a different skill set. And, when you're building a business, it's, certainly a product, like you said, kind of having the end user in mind is sort of always should be kind of always like the guiding light that sort of dictates, what you do. And so by having that user experience person, it's literally someone whose job is to be thinking about the perspective of the user. And I think that's like just so important. Like so many tools we use nowadays, you kind of just kick yourself. I can't, why did they do it like this? It's just like not at all very friendly. It's a turnoff to what otherwise could be great software, you know?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's very important to have a talented uh, developer behind the scenes doing the work, but your customers, they're interacting with that user interface. How they feel when they use your product is directly dependent on the user experience and the ability of that UX designer to put themselves in the shoes of your customer. How do I want to feel as I'm navigating through this journey? How do I want to feel when I leave this site or leave this app? That's what's most important. No different than shopping online on Nike.com. How you navigate through that checkout decides whether or not you're going to buy. Same thing is true when you're downloading an app using a service. It needs to be a great experience.
In the world of marketing, where I generally live my day to day, there's a lot of different channels, things like social media, SEO, paid advertising, etc. Um, if you're a marketer, you probably have an awareness or an understanding of many of them, but you may not be really like a specialist or particularly skilled in all of them. I, for one, have not really done much with like paid advertising campaigns. Is it kind of the same in tech, and what are some of the major differences? I know there's lots of different coding languages, fine, but to my understanding, like the same app could in many ways sometimes be coded on multiple different languages. That's not always like the biggest decision to make, but are there bigger decisions around whether it's B2B or B2C, or whether there's, this e-commerce portion, or, is that maybe a factor that really should be considered?
Yeah, Dave, and I had this conversation yesterday with someone who's in marketing and in digital advertising. The world of marketing and the world of product development are very, very similar. It's about identifying that product market fit, about identifying what your customer is going to want and how to speak to them, how to engage with them and meet with them where they are. So there's a ton of overlap in skills and an early process of identifying where you want the product to be long term, the North Star vision of where you want to get to. That's going to inform a lot of those decisions you were talking about what tech stack or what programming language or what infrastructure is going to be used. Because you're right, a lot of them are interchangeable, and it's how you piece them together to get to a solution that's going to change.
Yeah. Uh, when I talk with clients, in marketing, we're often trying to get them to kind of understand, the bigger picture of what we're trying to do, the longer term implications and potential results that we can drive, and not always to be kind of focused on little things day to day. Sometimes people maybe come in with like the wrong mindset, I guess. And I wonder when you are talking with like a founder, they're evaluating their path for tech. Do you find people sometimes are having the wrong priorities? And if so, again, what are the areas where people often are overlooking or not paying enough attention to in terms of what you know what's going to really matter for them.
Yeah, great question, Dave. I think one of the most common mistakes I see is rushing to development too quickly. When someone comes to me or our team and they're looking for our services, they want help building a product, building an MVP, or improving their software. It feels like it should be a light switch moment where we start development and boom, here's a piece of software. And not enough time is spent early on in validation, in user research, and really understanding the problem you're trying to solve. Until you have a crystal clear idea of the problem and how you're going to solve it and how that adds value to the customer, can't start anything because it's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources. That's that's a big one.
Yeah, that's the big one, man, right there. Yeah, you just said it. And it really resonates with me as someone who's frankly has built several things that like nobody needed. And I see this all the time as well. If you go on any website, I think it's like acquire.com or something like marketplaces where people are kind of selling like tools. It's just a graveyard of tools that people have built that have no users, no revenue. It was somebody's kind of idea or passion product, and they said, "Hey, I'm just going to build this," and then like nothing really comes of it. And it's because of the lack of time spent in the user research, in the problem solution kind of fit. It's totally underappreciated. I can't like stress this enough. So
Yeah,
I'm really glad
to
that you brought that up.
to that point, Dave, a common term that's thrown out there is MVP, minimum viable product, and that's the idea is the smallest or least complicated form of the solution you can get out there to start getting validation and real user feedback. That term is thrown out there a lot, and it's it's not an endpoint. It is the starting point. So the quicker and uh, cheaper you can get to that MVP or that point where you can learn and iterate, the better. And so spending a ton of time upfront in user research, inexpensive prototyping, and a very narrowed MVP is how you get to the product market fit, how you get to those really valuable solutions, because you're able to get feedback.
Yeah, no, like super, super well said. Again, I don't know if we all sometimes really understand. We hear these things, but like I don't think we really kind of understand it. There's a guy in the community, I'm not gonna name names or whatever, but this guy in the community I've kind of been working with on an app that, is talking about maybe matching people at events and stuff like this. And he's building. He's like a developer by trade, so it's sort of his natural inclination to build things. And I think the other day kind of came to me. He's like, I want to take a step back and I want to just go to an event and see if I can just match people up manually. Like do a survey, find out who they're interested in meeting, and just literally just manually kind of pair people and just see what the experience is like. Do people actually take the time to fill out the survey? Like, what types of responses do they provide? Do they actually meet with the person at the event? Like, just some real like basic market validation and research. And it's costs them nothing basically, except for some time or whatever. But that's the name of the game. And he'll get some great insights from that, and that's going to help potentially shape the product if he decides it's something worth going forward with. So, that was really I can't think of a better place to kind of end the podcast on, because this I think was really the driving point. So there's no need to edit this. I feel really good about where we ended up. Ryan, for people that do want to learn more about you, your services, get in touch, how can they do so?
They can find me on LinkedIn, of course. Our website is peak-solutions.com. That's Pique. Or you can magically make it appear right here.
It will definitely be in the show notes and in the description. How about that? Thank you,
Sounds
Ryan.
good, Dave. Thanks for having me.